Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cosmic Owl Astrology with Louise Edington. I am Louise Edington, your wisdom weaver and cosmic owl, bringing you today the week ahead forecast beginning today, the 24th. I'm late with it. I've just had such a busy time, busy weekend with friends, actually, so all good. But, sometimes you just can't do it all, right? And excuse this, I've clearly just kind of rub too hard or something. My skin's so sensitive to that. But anyway, here we are with the week ahead forecast, and I will dive in, but I'm going to give you a glimpse of the cards that I pulled for the week. They're really nice, actually, but I do think this week isn't the easiest, and we really are in this eclipse period now that is really kind of so strong and a powerful time of change. I'm recording this after that 0 degree Virgo new moon that was yesterday, that was a focal point of a finger of fate or God. And I might actually kind of quickly look back at that. And I'm going to be doing the videos for the lunar eclipse on September the 7th, first of all. That one is kind of a massive, massive eclipse, not just because it's a total lunar eclipse, but because of lots of other reasons. So I'll be going into great detail on that. But I just want to tell you that we're kind of in this now. We're feeling this coming. So I was very relieved to pull good cards because as always, it's my sincere belief that, with lots of self-care and lots of working with the energies, we can move through these more challenging periods with more ease. Okay. So the cards I pulled. First, the god of discs, Dionysus. This is from the Red Threads Tarot, as always. So I love that he's got horns. Dionysus, we'll look at that in full at the end. Then I pulled the Labyrinth, which we'll look at. I love this deck so much. It really speaks to the energies, particularly at the moment. And then we have the Great Mother. So we have some lovely cards, but that doesn't necessarily, they're more as a guide to how you can work with the energies for this week. So let's get the chart up for today. So I'm not going to jiggle the chart back to yesterday, but yesterday, early on the 23rd, we had this new moon. As I record this, the moon is actually conjunct the south node, or just was conjunct the south node earlier this morning. And the nodes are at 18 degrees Virgo and Pisces. And so this is the degree that the nodes sit at right through the eclipse period. I use the true calculation, which means the osculating calculation of the lunar nodes, because you do know their points, then it's not an actual kind of physical body. And the osculating nodes move back and forth. But during eclipses, which are new and full moons, where the moon, the earth, and the sun line up with the path of the sun around the earth from our perspective, which is called the ecliptic, and that's where the nodes are. And so the nodes stay at the same degree for weeks through eclipses. I'm just going to pause because my diva cat has decided she wants to leave the room I'll be back. Incidentally, by the way, this energy is quite draining and tiring. So, I'm feeling it. I'm dragging. This is the second time that I have recorded this. I just was not happy with the first recording at all. And instead of just putting it out there, I decided to do it again, but that's fine. But as you can see, really, we're still in the new moon phase. So if you have a moon app that tracks the new and full moons, you can quite often see that what phase you're in. I actually use the moon, but I have an iPhone, and we're still in the new moon phase. The moon only right now has 2.3% light, so we're still in this dark moon, planting seeds, setting intentions, starting to begin something new or what we want to begin. And a reminder that the new moon was at 0 degrees Virgo, conjunct fixed star Regulus, the first new moon conjunct Regulus since Regulus entered Virgo from our perspective at the end of 2011. And this new moon was at the focal point of this very strong finger of fate or God from Saturn and Neptune in Aries, boundaries and boundlessness at the world point, pretty much where they're going to meet early next year exactly. I will say this is activating as well the Aries Venus morning star, Venus star point that was at 2 Aries back on March the 22nd. I just had my meeting with the Venus star point practitioners, and we're all saying Aries is like go, 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 but this is like go, stop, fixed. It's like very kind of murky and confusing. This is not at all like a normal Aries star point, which is very pioneering. So these energies are very, very potent, and can be challenging. But also Pluto and Saturn and Neptune are in this sextile of opportunity aspect to each other. Pluto in Aquarius, retrograde there. They're all retrograde. They're all revisiting things. That's slowing things down too, pointing at this potent point. So go and watch my new moon video. Listen to the symbols for that potent new moon, because it's a real kind of focal point of push, of potential new beginnings, but we're still in that dark phase. All right. And I did also want to give a shout out for the second yod that's pointing at Saturn and Neptune from Haumea and the new moon. This is the Aries point, is such a potent point as well for new beginnings. We're gonna, everything's changing basically. So that's a long way of me kind of going into great detail about where we're at. So so the week ahead, and as usual, I'm going to look at the bigger aspects. I'm not going to look at the lunar aspects. I will mention each time the moon changes signs, and I will be doing those on my daily forecasts on Substack. I didn't do those daily forecasts this weekend because, again, this energy is exhausting, and sometimes something's got to give. But anyway, here today, early this morning, the sun was exactly square to Uranus. That was at 3:14 a.m. Eastern. And really the new moon was square to it. So this is radical, radical change. This is news coming out, but that will shift more perspectives. There may be some shocks, some surprises, some pleasant, some less so. But this is really all kind of ongoing, okay? And Uranus in Gemini is very erratic in any way, in so many ways. It's opposing my Mercury, so I'm feeling this erratic kind of energy. But, this is like, Gemini is community, but it's also perspectives, ideas, it's the messenger. And so, we can see that over this weekend, what's in the news, if you're following it, may seem so like crazy that it's hard to keep processing. Trust that it will emerge, because what emerges from this period is going to change everything. Okay. So that was early this morning. That was the first big aspect. I'm not going to, again, I am actually going to mention a couple of asteroids. I love Pallas Athena, the strategist, especially in Aquarius. She is the pattern seer in astrology. A lot of astrologers have a strong Pallas Athena, including me. And so it's being able to pull these pieces together and see the patterns. Pallas Athena is in a fixed square to Hecate in the sign of Scorpio, the sign of soul depth and power and powerlessness and being disempowered and manipulation and being manipulated. But Hecate is there with all of these energies in Scorpio, saying the way, the path forward, the way to shine your torch is actually on this deep soul empowerment from within in order to move forward. Because I'm always more concerned with how you are working with the energies on these calls. Okay, so then we've just had the moon conjunct the south node. I started kind of there. The moon is starting to move away, but we're still in that new moon phase. So remember, today is kind of all kind of fermenting inside. But we have another big aspect before we finish the day, and that's from Mars in Libra. Mars in Libra is really kind of speeding along now. It was retrograde recently from Leo back into Cancer, if you remember. That seems a long time ago now, but and Mars in Libra is is the peace warrior, but is also can kind of be kind of a little bit warring factions coming to each other, because Mars in Libra can be a little bit aggressive, a little bit passive aggressive. Find it quite funny that I kind of said there's an element of that passive aggression in the way that Gavin Newsom is trolling our dear leader. And no, yes, he's being smart. Somebody was like, he's not being passive aggressive. Well, you can interpret it that way, but I kind of interpret it as good passive aggression, of kind of like not directly attacking, but being more passive, using smarts. Okay. And that brings me to that aspect, because Mars is trying to Pallas Athena in Aquarius. It's like, how can we use this strategy well now? This is a lovely unbroken low aspect. How can we use a different strategy? Because clearly, like, going on attack is not really working, like direct attack. So it's a bit more sleight of hand, passive aggression, if you want to call it that. Not always a bad thing, maybe. Anyway, on to tomorrow. So as you can see, the moon enters Libra. So the moon enters the sign of Libra at 10:08 a.m. Eastern and will spend 2.5 days in Libra. The moon's starting to pull away from the sun, and we're starting to get glimmers of light tomorrow. So things will start to move a little bit. But as I said, we've got all these kind of big challenging things at the moment because of these retrogrades all speaking to each other, kind of slowing things down. Saturn and Neptune going, oh, it's confusing, and where's my boundaries, and where's the boundlessness, and where's the interconnectedness? So, don't expect full-on action, but we will be in the waxing crescent phase on the starting on Monday. So things you can start to take action. By the way, just because it's like this, it just feels like more difficult to get to places. It does not mean that you're not moving forward at all. Anyway, Venus moves into the sign of Leo on early on the 25th, on Monday, 12:27 p.m. exactly Eastern time. The moon enters Leo. I'm not going to go over the whole thing in Leo. I might do an extra video, but I do want to say that Venus in Leo is very much kind of girls just want to have fun kind of energy. For you personally, the fun factor might kind of ramp up quite a bit, but also Venus in Leo is really about that self-care, but it's also about the new. I talked about the new a lot, and I have done in the past, and I talk about it in my Venus retrograde classes. In some respects, Venus is very associated, very connected to the energy of Mary Magdalene. Now, in Mary Magdalene's gospel, which is said to be her carrying on the teachings of the Christ. She talks about a word called the Nous, Nous, and you can go look it up if you like, but the Nous is about seeing with the eye of the heart, and that's high Venus in Leo energy to my mind. And so Venus in Leo is about learning to see both yourself and others through the eye of the heart in many ways. But first, the intimacy comes from the inside out. So it's taking a good look at what you need to do to come from that place of self-love first. We don't love ourselves mostly. I do now. It's been a long journey, but we don't love ourselves for all our warts and all. We have to do all this shadow work. We have to do this self-care. We have to do this acceptance so that we are able to be kind of this energy of love and light. To, you know, you use that horribly abused phrase quite a lot, but anyway, ranting. Also on Monday, Mercury has now moved past the degree of his station retrograde, or their station retrograde. Mercury is treading new ground, and Mercury will make an unbroken flow aspect to the fellow boundary crosser and changer, Ceres, who is now retrograde. This is the third of three exact unbroken flow trine aspects that the two made. I did a whole video on it, but this one is the final one. Mercury has been retrograde, but again, this is bringing up this theme of self-care, putting yourself first, putting your own healing first, so that you are then able to put the oxygen mask on others. And then Venus, again, a lot of Venus action, because she's going to run the whole gauntlet of these planets that have just changed signs. Now she's in Leo. Every time a planet changes signs at the moment, including the moon on a monthly basis, has to run the gauntlet of these big change-making energies. But Venus will make an unbroken flow aspect to Saturn. And that's kind of looking at more at some of our limiting beliefs that stop us really building what we want to build, or what action we really want to take in the world. And so we'll start kind of looking at that again based on seeing with the Nous. Okay, on to Tuesday. Tuesday, again, the moon is in the sign of Libra. You can see it will meet Mars, and I will talk about all these aspects again on my daily forecast. Just know that the moon is activating all these aspects as well all week. But Venus, again, on the 26th at 4:36 p.m. exactly, will make an exact square to Haumea, which I have left in consciously because Haumea is one of these big change makers at the early degrees. Haumea is the creatrix aspect of energy. She's the creation goddess of the Hawaiian pantheon of gods or cosmology. She has this generative and regenerative energy as well. She is said to have given birth from every part of her body, and then she would regenerate and be younger again, be healed, and keep regenerating. But she's a birthing kind of energy as well. She actually even looks like an egg. So, you know, this energy at the beginning of Scorpio is birthing from that deep soul empowerment place. And this is bringing heart and soul together, in my opinion, to say, what are you wanting to birth, or what's your part in this massive shift we're going through? Later on Tuesday, Venus again will actually make an aspect of opportunity to Uranus. So all this kind of news and changed perspectives that are coming through, this is an opportunity to kind of see it differently and to start saying, this is how I can do things differently, both in your personal life and in the world. Okay. And then, yeah, so that's that part of the gauntlet, as I said. So, and then Venus will also trine Neptune. Also on that same day. This is, you know, all this beginning of this week, Venus is running this gauntlet of these big change makers. Now, Venus and Neptune have similarities in energy because at a earthly level, Venus is love and our love language, if you like, our love nature. And Neptune is kind of that higher love, that connection with source, with spirit, you know. And in fire, this is kind of saying what inspires us, what fires us up, you know, what do we want to bring in? More love, right? You know, all of this energy keeps repeating these lessons. And then on to Wednesday, when the moon will dive into Scorpio and will, what's the time it moves into Scorpio? Not till 9:27 p.m. on the 27th. Okay, so the moon will finish most of the day in the USA, at least in Libra. So just to give you kind of an energy, Libra moon is at balance seeking, harmony seeking, wants to kind of bring that lighter energy, lightness of being in. But Venus, the guide for the Libra moon, opposes Pluto, runs the last of the gauntlet. I didn't mention the sextile to Sedna, that's a big part of it as well, but this is a direct look. These two staring each other in the face, going, what are my earthly desires? What does my heart really desire? Staring Pluto in the face, going, you know, what shadow have I got to accept and look at and dive deep into if I want to create this better future, Aquarius? So there you go. Let me look any other big aspects for the day. I'm actually going to mention Mercury again. You can see how fast Mercury is moving now. 15 degrees was the degree where Mercury started treading new ground. Mercury in Leo is speaking from the heart, right? Treading new ground about, especially after things that reflected on the last retrograde. And Mercury is staring Chariclo, that beautiful grace spinner who's helping us to weave this new story. And those two look each other in the face and say, what are we creating? What new story are we creating individually and collectively? So, yeah, that's all the aspects on that day. So on to Thursday, the 28th. You can see the moon is now in Scorpio. Scorpio moons are always more deeply emotional. And every time the moon moves through Scorpio right now, our emotions go deeper, and they're meeting all these sacred feminine energies, for want of a better expression. Haumea, the creatrix again, Hecate, the triple moon goddess, who literally could move between worlds. Also got that psychopomp kind of energy of death and rebirth at crossroads, but I also associate her with the shamanic worlds, which are the underworld, the lower world, the middle world, which is kind of the mundane world we think we live in, and the upper world. But in energy, that is our root chakras, our center, and then our head. So, you know, these things always have multiple layers. Then there's Black Moon Lilith, which is our inner kind of wild woman, if you like, or our very elemental self. That is how we feel kind of really deep inside. And Juno, our sacred contracts with each other. And Vesta, which is, you know, our inner flame of focus and commitment and devotion. So I'm not going to go into great detail about that. I will do on my daily posts, but just know that, you know, the moon is going to be activated by all of these energies and all the other aspects that the moon will make. And then the big aspects for that day. Well, the moon makes its first significant Ptolemaic aspect to the sun after yesterday's new moon, the aspect of opportunity. The moon's really starting to gain light. We're now heading towards that first quarter moon and then towards that big lunar eclipse. But this is earth and water. This is what are we shaping? What are we really working on to create? May feel muddy, may feel slow, but it's really kind of keep churning ahead in many ways. And remember when we started with the new moon, that was pointing at Saturn and Neptune. That's earth and water as well. So it feels very weighty, all of this energy, but this is just keep going, keep molding, keep sculpting, keep building, keep kind of focusing on that what you are working on. And why has my voice gone croaky like this? Okay, also on the 28th, Uranus again, change maker, lord of lightning bolts, or being of lightning bolts, let's say, and surprises and radical change. Okay, Uranus makes an exact aspect of opportunity with Neptune, which is dissolving our old perceptions, dissolving who we thought we were individually and collectively, and so these two start to really work together. Now I'm probably going to have to do more separate videos on all of this because these are repeating aspects. Sextile again is an opportunity, but it's part of this grand sextile or mini grand trine between Pluto, Uranus and Sedna, with Neptune at the midpoint. You can see this triangle here, and Saturn for this current period at least. This is the big shift energy that we've talked about. So Neptune and Uranus make their first exact sextile. So these are steps in this process of big change. But I'm going to call out another aspect. Another finger of fate of God is pointing at Haumea from these two. You can see that at the moment I picked for the day, it's exact 1 degree 25 here. This is 1 degree 26. Another potent destiny point. This is a time of shifting of destiny. We are waking up to seeing that the old cycles are ending and we are birthing a new cycle. And what is that going to look like? And what do we want it to look like? Some of it we have little control over, but you know, this is a point of destiny for humans and the earth in so many ways. Radical rebirth, regeneration and change. Okay, so back to the 28th. Mercury again will actually square off to Juno, our sacred contracts asteroid. We're looking at our sacred contracts with each other collectively and with the earth. All right, let's not forget the earth in all of this. I think we are really being asked to recognize that everything is interconnected. I've heard that word used more and more by other astrologers and other people, but I actually heard it kind of on something political the other day, and I can't remember what it was. But of recognizing that everything is interconnected. Seems we had to, because we've had this illusion of separation, that's being blown out of the water. All right. So, right, on the 29th, that was Mercury's aspect. I talked about the yard. Vesta over here, focus, commitment, devotion, inner flame. You know, she is a flame. Look at it. Looks like a flame. It's kind of what we focus on when we're meditating. It's that kind of focus, right? Vesta in Scorpio is focusing on our deep soul development, growth, whatever. And Venus will square off to talk to the hand, asteroid Lilith, saying, I'm not doing this. Stop. We can't do this. Rebellious teenager in Aquarius saying, we're not going back, basically. Gosh, so many layers to all of this stuff, right? Okay, so on to Friday, the 29th. Oh, I think I was already looking at the 29th for that square from Vesta to asteroid Lilith. Sorry about that, but yeah, all this energy is really strange. So we have that Venus square to asteroid Lilith. You would have felt it building, but anyway. But later on the 29th, Mercury over here will come up and oppose asteroid Lilith. So this is making a fixed T square of what we of like speaking from the heart or tuning into our heart to understand what we really desire, squared off to this focus and commitment asteroid and opposing asteroid Lilith. So, all of this is just kind of saying, yeah, more. I think people are going to start even getting more vocal. As I mentioned, Mercury's treading new ground now, and it's reflecting on what's happening and saying, oh, no, no, no. Oh, no, no, no. This is not how it's going to work. And so more and more people are going to be speaking up, I think. Okay, on to the 30th now, the last day of the week. I can't tell you how hard it is to record this under this new moon energy, because that's why I had to re-record, because it's so kind of strange. Anyway, we finished the week though with the moon entering Sagittarius. Mood that will lighten the mood. And next week will be start with that, and next week on I'll come to that in a minute. The first quarter moon crisis in action, and then building towards this massive eclipse, will really be like the big push to get things done and, stop this being held back by the turgid, keep kind of being determined in many ways. So as usual, the moon will run the gamut of aspects. Okay, so that's the 30th. Oh my God, I've lost the other paper for the 30th. No, I haven't. Here it is. Okay, so on the 30th, there's not many lunar aspects. I mean, not many big aspects. There are only lunar aspects. So look for my daily Substack post on that. But I will just quickly say, obviously, the moon is going to run the gamut of these big change makers, and will, of course, start on Saturday the 30th by squaring the degree of the new moon that we began the week with. And so, all of this week is about really, a lot of energy is activating these energies of massive shift in consciousness that we astrologers keep talking about. But I do want to give you a little heads up about the first quarter moon next week. So the first quarter moon is going to be early on. Oh, I don't want the conjunction. So now, and now I've got a trine. Oh my goodness. Honestly, this Neptune is on my south node. So, this is... Anyway, August 31st, 2:25 a.m. I'm not going to go through all the lunar aspects, but I do kind of want to give you a little heads up. We will have the first quarter moon at 8 degrees Sagittarius to 8 degrees Virgo. This is a mutable first quarter moon. This is giving us a massive big push towards the change that's coming. And then we really start the journey to the lunar eclipse that is just huge, to be quite honest. I will talk more about this in my daily post, but I do want you to note that it is at 8 degrees, which is kind of a number of infinity and stability. This to me is suggesting that we really are being called to lean into this crazy energy of change and just kind of go with it, but also to really kind of focus on just our own self-love, self-healing, and then our part in it first, rather than trying to do everything out in the world. I know I keep talking about that over and over, but honestly, the astrology has told me, what's happening in the world has told me, Source has told me, whatever you want to call it, that this is the time we were in of realizing that we are kind of this system within systems within systems, which is systems theory and quantum astrology. We are connected to everything else, but the only thing we really know is what we are within. So the cards. Let's go to the cards. And I am going to get the book out and read from the book because this deck is just so special to me. And I love what she's done with it. So here we go. Red Threads Tarot. It's Linda Hill, Linda Hill on Etsy in the UK. If you just search Red Threads Tarot Etsy, you'll find it. But anyway, this is the God of Discs. We start the week and it says, I am regeneration. What did I talk about? Regeneration with Haumea and all these things happening. We are literally being regenerated, but we are regenerating each of us from the inside out. I am going to read just this lovely quote from Alice Walker, wonderful writer. In nature, nothing is perfect and everything is perfect, and this includes you. Trees can be contorted, bent in weird ways, and they're still beautiful. And this is what we are coming to terms within. And this really is kind of about dancing with that connection with the material world and your physical body. All right. So that's the first card. The second card I pulled, and by the way, before I forget, please don't forget to subscribe, all those things I forgot to ask. Also, my book is doing so well. I love it. Thank you to everybody that's bought it. If you bought it and had a chance to read it, please, please, please leave me a review on Amazon, wherever you are in the world. It will show on Amazon.com. Reviews in other countries do show. If you didn't buy it from Amazon, you can review under the Kindle version. So I know a lot of people prefer to buy elsewhere. So anyway, so the second card is Labyrinth, and this is I Am Soul. So I'll read you another quote. Back to the labyrinth, where either we are found or lose ourselves forever. And this is kind of doubling down on the message of this being about your soul journey. And when I think of the soul, I think of our real root energy. What are we bringing out? Our inner gold, if you like, to quote the title of an amazing little book by a psychologist who's no longer with us called Robert A. Johnson, Inner Gold. We are digging in to find our inner gold. It's the only way forward. And then the last card is the Great Mother. Where is that card? Oh. Hang on. There is a little bit of a, here we go. There is a little bit of errors in the book with this, but that's okay. I work with it. I told the creator, and I think she's redoing the book. But the Great Mother, this to me is Ceres in many ways, but also, they're all faces of the goddess. This is I am mystery. I am many, I am one, is the quote from Christine Downing, the goddess. I, who am the beauty of the green earth and the white moon among the stars and the mysteries of the water, I call upon you, soul, to arise and come unto me, for I am the soul of nature that gives life to the universe, the charge of the goddess. The Earth Mother is well travelled in grief, loss, and pain, but also offers us great joy and ecstasy. This is an ancient energy. This is the embodiment of nature, and we are nature. So I think you get the idea where these cards are taking you, and the astrology is this is a week to really feel into, in an even deeper way, that you are part of nature, you are part of everything, everything is interconnected. And so even though the outside world might seem crazy, all the intimacy and the answers are going to come from within. So much love. I will see you next week or on the next video, because I'm actually going to do one for the lunar eclipse. Maybe not today, we'll see. And see you later. Bye.